In the last video, I talked about the two different ways we could think about numbers and the two different ways kids think about numbers. Now I want to look at connecting these two different views of numbers. So counting objects gives a one-to-one correspondence between the first portion of the list of counting numbers and the set. So what exactly do we mean by that? Let's suppose I have these 5 blocks here, and as we point to them, we count them. This is block 1, block 2, block 3, block 4, and block 5. So every single block that we have is paired with exactly one number, and every single number is paired with one block. So this is what we mean by a one-to-one correspondence. We only use a portion of the numbers, so we don't continue on indefinitely when we count. We do stop. So that's the part that we talk about, the portion of the list. The first portion indicates that we always start with 1 when we count. And so counting gives us a correspondence between our counting numbers and the things inside of our set. The last number we say when we count a set of objects tells us how many objects are in the set. This is something that is going to seem extremely obvious, and it's something that as adults we usually take for granted. However, kids, when they are learning, this is a really hard concept for them. And it's something that they have to figure out. So let's suppose we have our 5 blocks and we count them once again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So now we can look at this as a set and say there are 5 blocks altogether, since 5 is the last number that we said. Like I said, this is something that seems extremely obvious as adults. But it does show us that the order of counting numbers is super important. Even more so than the order of the alphabet. If someone switches up some of the letters in the alphabet, as long as they include all the letters, it's not really that big of a deal. However, with counting numbers, it's really important, since the order that we say things in help us determine how many objects are in the set. These connections between the list view of numbers and the cardinality view of numbers are very important to understand, that later numbers mean larger quantities. So it can help us compare numbers, knowing that the idea that since 6 comes later in the list than 4, 6 means we have more objects than 4 objects. We can figure out very early on that if we start at any number, the next number in the list means one more object. The previous number in the list means one less object. So these are some very, very basic things about numbers and these basic connections between these two views of numbers that adults take for granted a lot, but as a kid that we need to actually make these connections before we can start properly understanding numbers.